We covered VNet, we covered subnet. Okay, let's proceed with the next topic, which is network security group. Okay, so network security group, so which is also we'll call it as NSG. So let's say you created VNet, right? You created your VNet, which is having 10.125.0.0/24. Under this, you created a production, which is 10.125.0.0/25. This is production. And then you created another subnet, which is non-prod, which is 10.125.0.0. Sorry, let's say 1.0 slash not 1.0, it should be 0.0 because address space you are defining this, right? So it should be inside this. So for example, this is 128. Okay, 0.128/26. Okay, now you have address space. Under that, you created two subnets, one for your production and another one non-prod. You deploy your VMs here, right? This is the production VM. This is a non-prod VM. So once you deploy your VM, you may access internet from this VM. For example, this is the internet. You may access VM from this internet. And second one, let's say you have your on-premise network. So you may communicate to on-prem as well. And the third one is you may communicate to your non-prod infra also, right? So in a typical environment, before you allow any communication to your internet, you need to see and allow. You should not allow blindly. By default, all outbound connections are allowed from your VNet, so there is no restriction. But by default, no incoming connection is allowed. So somebody cannot access your from outside. Okay, so somebody cannot access from internet to your VM outside. That is by default blocked. But you can access anything from your VM to outside. But make sure one thing, within your VNet, right? Within your VNet, you can access both inbound and outbound. This is very important. Most of the people doesn't know this, but this is very important. Within your VNet, for example, from your prod to non-prod, you can access vice versa. Okay, this communication is allowed. So these are the three things you should remember. One is all outbound is allowed, so you can access anything, Facebook, Google, whatever it is, when you deploy your VMs. A second thing is on-premise. For example, if you are on-premise environment or it is connected over VPN or Express route, whatever it is, that also you can access. And third one is you can access the other product non-prod as well. That is outbound. When it comes to inbound means somebody is accessing your VDI or your VM. Okay, so this is not allowed from internet. By default, it is blocked. From the on-prem also it is blocked, but within your subnet, it is allowed. Now the question is how you can control this traffic, right? There comes something called NSG, Network Security Group. Okay, so let's say this is your VNet and you have your subnet, prod, non-prod. You have a VM here, you have your internet, etc. Now what you're going to do is you create one service here, which is called NSG. Okay, this will act as firewall. So any traffic which you access from this VM, right? First it will hit this NSG. So NSG will check. Okay, if I wanted to go access Google, NSG will check whether I have a rule called allow access to Google. Then only it will allow to your Google or internet. If that rule is not there, then it won't allow you to access the internet. Similarly, within your subnet also you can control the traffic. How? So here in this NSG, you define that any traffic which is going to my non-prod should be blocked. So you'll create a rule here saying that my non-prod traffic should be blocked. So none of the traffic will go out of this, subnet. Similarly, here also in the non-prod, you create a NSG. You say that in none of the traffic to production should be allowed. So by the moment you access your production from the non-prod, right, NSG will check whether this rule is allowed or not. If the rule is not allowed, it will drop the traffic. It won't allow you. So in NSG, we have two types of rules. One is inbound rule and another one is outbound rule. Inbound rule is anything coming to your subnet or your VM. that is called inbound. For example, let's say if you wanted to access from internet, you need to do RDP. You need to define in this inbound rule, so that you need to open, you need to add a rule saying that 3389 should be allowed. So the traffic will come to the NSG. NSG will check whether 3389 is allowed or not. If 3389 is allowed, then you can do the RDP, otherwise not. Similarly, for the outbound, outbound means from the VM you will access Google, Facebook, or whatever it is. You need to define in the outbound rule so that you can allow. So this is brief about inbound and outbound rule. Okay, so now comes one more important concept. This NSG, right? This works only on the IP level, not on the URL. What it means, let's say you wanted to allow or you know to allow some inbound or outbound based on the IP address, then only you can add a role. For example, if you know the IP address of facebook.com, you can define in the NSG saying that, for example, this is the Facebook IP address 192.168 or something dot something. So which may say it belongs to Facebook. You can define a rule in your NSG saying that this IP should be allowed. Okay. So for example, if you wanted to block or allow based on the URL, for example, www.facebook.com or www.google.com. So such rules, it's not allowed. Only IP address you can whitelist, not URLs. Okay. So to do this URL things, there is something called firewall that will come, we'll look into the later part. Okay. So NSG, make sure that NSG will only allow IP address. No URLs are allowed. Okay. Though, so this is related to NSG.